on, my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to
Hey guys, it's Kat and I'm back because what was will be again. So, to the burning question everybody wants to know, who is Azor Ahai? Well, it's Gil and Itamar over at Game of Thrones Academy. Yeah, really. So, everybody's been thinking that Azor Ahai is one guy. He's the prince that was promised. And as a matter of fact, if you go over there and read the A Song of Fire and Ice Wikipedia, that's what's written because that's what came down through oral tradition. And as we all know with oral tradition, things happen. Pieces get missed. We don't know. We don't know we're missing pieces because by the time anybody got around to writing it down, it's been centuries, eons. They can't remember. Well, there's other reasons they can't remember, but we'll get to that. So, by chance, I just happened to remember that I'd heard the word or name actually Azor at another time. It sounds like Azure, doesn't it? So I googled Azor, and sure enough, it comes up as an individual. And guess who Azor is? He's a biblical figure. And this biblical figure is in the Gospel of Mark. You could look it up for yourself. And he's listed as being a couple people's dad, but he's also known as the helper of God. And somewhere along the way, he's related to Jesus, believe it or not. So after that, I looked up the word Ahai because wow, that if Azor's a separate word, then Ahai must be also a separate word or name. And sure enough, Ahai is the name of a man, a Jewish man, who lived, I don't remember the period, but it's called Savernal, the Savernal period. He was a sage or a high rabbi. And one of the things that he did was he helped to write the new Talmud from the Babylonian version. And in fact, he was so highly revered that there's actually things written in this Talmud that says, you know, Ar Ahai said it, and therefore, if he said it, believe what he says because he knows his stuff. So Azor is the helper of God, and Ahai is a sage, somebody who knows a lot of stuff and can help you figure things out. Well, what does that tell us about who that is in our Game of Thrones? Because there's some people that seem like sages, right? But who's Azor? Who's the helper of God? Well, basically, everybody in this story is Azor Ahai. Yes, really. So think about it. Tyrion is always dropping these little homilies and quotes and stories, and he's teaching people things with the things that he says. And then he says, "That's what I do. I drink and I know things." And of course, there's Varys. So these are pretty obvious, and Samwell Tarly, but they're not the only Ahais out there. Everybody, all along, have been saying things that teaches lessons, morals, um, some values. Not everybody's got values, but they're giving you moral lessons throughout the whole story. Everybody. And what about Azor? So some obvious people, well, maybe it's not obvious to you because you haven't figured it out yet. Um, People who are helping all along the way, the three red priestesses, right? They're giving prophecies. Dany went to the house of the undead and they gave her some prophecies to help figure out where she needed to go or what she needed to do. Those are Azor. um, People who are guiding people along the way. So Zor Mormont. He's Azor because isn't he helping Dani as she goes along? He's helping out. So all of these people are acting as Azor. And the three priestesses are the most interesting and tell you a little bit more about what else is happening in our story. So the three red priestesses are the tri-goddess Hecate or Scathach, depending on what mythology you want to read. So Hecate in Greek mythology, she's the goddess with the torch down in the underworld. So when the souls come and they cross over, they get dipped in the river Lethe and it wipes away their memories. And then Hecate leads them along one of the many roads in the underworld to where they're supposed to be. So if you're heroic, she would lead you to Valhalla. If, you just died of old age or because you stepped on a nail and, and got an infection and croaked, because back then there wasn't very much medicine of any variety, that's where you would go. You would go to Abba I can never pronounce that freaking name. Anyways, it's the place where all the regular dead folks go to. And then, if by any freaking chance you're not supposed to be there, like, oops, yeah, we weren't supposed to take you yet, or you're a living person like Orpheus or Theseus who comes down there and tries to work out some deal to free somebody, and then that doesn't work out. Well, she's leading you out with her torch along the road. And so that is what she does. Hecate guides the souls to where they need to be. But also Scathach in the Welsh tradition, she is the crone or the mother. She's also a tri-goddess who stirs the cauldron. And what happens is in this cauldron, all the souls of the dead go into this cauldron and they forget who they are. And then after, they've boiled in there long enough, she takes them out and she sends them on their way to whatever their next life is. And that's actually what's happening in our story right now. People are being reincarnated. They die and they come back as somebody else. But that's not all. I have a mind-blowing revelation for you. Well, unless you've figured it out for yourself already. But I'm going to cover that in another video. So right now, Azor Ahai, as Gil and Itamar, Azor and Ahai, have explained, is that it is quite often a number of people, messianic figures. Well, Azor Ahai isn't really the Messiah. They're like the guides along the way so that whoever the Savior is can come. And so now we know also that the prince that is promised is a whole separate person. So, are you Team Dani or are you Team John? Catch you later. Have a good one.